Welcome to Thrive and Shine HR, a podcast and video series dedicated to helping us overcome the limiting beliefs, self-doubt, and imposter syndrome that so many of us HR professionals face. Here are your hosts with over 45 years experience in HR and certified life coaches, Jen and Katherine.
Oh, Jen, I think we're going to have to update that intro because by now, a year later into our podcast, we have more than 45 years of experience.
What a great thing to have to update. No problem there. I'm writing it down.
One of the many things that will be updated. You know, as we get older, we get wiser, all the good things. So blessed to still be here on this planet, right?
Oh, my word. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone to episode 41 of Thrive and Shine HR podcast. I'm Katherine Fry. I'm here with Jen Trumm, my fellow podcast host, and we are so excited that you've joined us today. Jen and I started this podcast. It was Jen's dream. She invited me along for the journey, and it's been quite the ride. We could not, still have not been able to find another podcast quite like this one. We get real. We get into it. We pretty much open up our brains for everyone to see what is happening now that we are in a much better frame of mind, both of us, personally and professionally, as individuals. And we just like to share that because Jen and I have both been down some pretty rocky roads. And one of those rocky roads may or may not have been burnout in our careers, whether we're trying to beat it, whether we're in it, or whether we're recovering from it. Burnout is real. It is real. And we're going to get into that today. So episode 41 is all about beat HR burnout. So Jen, I know we always start with what's a little catch up. I know our listeners love this. It's like, what's been going on in Jen and Katherine's world this week? So for you, I'm going to flip it. I usually ask what's going well.
Okay.
But I'm going to flip it. What has been the most stressful thing in your world this week?
Oh my gosh, that's easy. So today, as we're recording this, it's Friday the 13th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's when we're recording this on Friday the 13th. There are no surprises in this universe. I am just beyond overwhelmed and stressed because Monday is when we go live where I work with a new HR, payroll, timekeeping system, UKG, for anyone out there who knows UKG. It goes live Monday. So I have not been getting much sleep this week. It's been stress city, but you know what? This is crunch time. So it is, we've been doing testing. We've been doing a lot of sandboxing, a lot of going back and forth and collaborating. I just shared something on social media earlier today that said, I am so incredibly grateful for my finance manager, my IT manager, our whole implementation team, the team over at UKG. I'm filled with so much gratitude and my heart is so full, but I've not been this overwhelmed and burned out in a long time. So the fact that we're having this
no kidding
is just like the universe just saying, here you go. It's like low hanging fruit. So yeah, my answer is that this has been really, really a tough week, but I'm going to be okay.
You're in it. You are in it.
I'm in it about as big as you can get in it. And I'm still smiling and I'm about feeling as overjoyed as I could possibly feel for a team who is in it too, right? We all want this to succeed. We're all, there's always going to be ups and downs, but when you can find a good team that is just locked in and, when the real goings gets rough, when everyone is showing up, there's something about that. So that's definitely my low and high point this weekend, along with my high points are therapy. I had a nice session yesterday that I was not going to compromise on. So as busy as it was this week, I'm like, I am going to therapy and it's going to be amazing. So it was the best hour of my week for sure. Just letting it all out and releasing and all of that. So that was a lot. So, okay, I'm going to turn the table on you, Katherine.
Yeah.
Where have you been most challenged this week? Where are you, what's not going so well for you this week?
I wouldn't say nothing's not going well. Was that a double negative?
I'm the one who started it. That's my bad.
No, it's not. I choose my own words, Jen. I'll take this on all day long. I feel like I throw out double negatives quite often. What's been creating stress for me this week is actually really cool. I have been all over the valley where I live. I live near Aspen, Colorado. I went to Glenwood on Monday to do a training for the city of Glenwood Springs. I came back. I was up Valley. I was in Aspen working one-on-one with a relatively new client. We started working together just a couple of months ago. Really diving into his strategic planning for his business for 2025. The very next day, I am back down in Glenwood. It's another about 2.5 hour round trip from my house.
Oh my goodness.
It's getting snowy roads, so a little bit tense driving. I went down and I spoke to our regional energy company. It's called Holy Cross Electric. So shout out to everybody who is listening to the podcast from Holy Cross. Had a great training Wednesday morning. Popped back up Valley. Worked with a client yesterday who is struggling with some consternation. I have worked on and off with this one woman since 2022. So worked with her, did, of course, HR and Power Hour this week, did my coaching on Thursday, went back down to Glenwood today to lead a training for a local county, the local HR department.
Nice.
Training. So usually my business is very virtual. I coach HR professionals all over the world. This week, it just happened to be most of my clients were local, which was super cool. But the thing I'm very cognizant about, because I did experience pretty significant burnout about 4 years ago. What I experienced this week is very different. I'm experiencing acute stress. Acute stress, there are just moments of time that are stressful. And I had one on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but it's not burnout. And because I see it for what it is, it's just acute stress. And now it's Friday night at 6:10 p.m. where I live. And I did it. And I'm so proud. And it was hard. It was a lot of strict time management. It was a lot of, getting up and speaking in front of groups, which is the number one fear which I have had to overcome in order to be able to deliver to HR professionals all over the world. So it was, yes, very, very, very stressful, but I was able to remember it's a moment in time. And there were 5 of them, and they were pretty chunky, but I also had a lot of wins this week, so that probably made it good too.
Kind of kept you like riding on that.
Totally. And very unexpected wins. We'll probably get into that too. But yeah, Jen, it doesn't surprise me to hear that you're burned out, because when I started reading the statistics, I have not read burnout statistics in HR in, I don't know. It's probably been about 2 or 3 years when I really was geeking out on the metrics of HR burnout. So I'm curious if you had some time to do a little bit of deep diving into statistics around burnout, and what are some statistics that you found? And maybe if you could start us off with a definition of burnout, if you have one, like what exactly is it? So we're all on the same page with what burnout is as we dive in today.
Way to hand me like the underhand. Way to hand it off perfectly. So burnout is something that, in terms of like understanding the difference between burnout and stress.
Yeah.
And the way that I have been able to understand burnout is the excessive or prolonged periods of time of stress that include physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. And And so when that ends up, occurring over a longer period of time, that's when burnout occurs, especially when we just don't really have the capability, right? Like I don't have the capacity within myself to be able to manage all this right now. So I'm just, we just power through. We don't have the ability to
Oh,
delegate. It's like these power through periods in our lives that then, inevitably you can only give so much. We're energetic beings. There's only so much within us to give. So that physical, that mental, and that emotional, the mental and emotional is not seen. It's a little bit more difficult to be able to measure. And so a lot of times people really don't understand, or there's not really a good understanding of like recognizing that it really, all of that together, when you're pushing and pushing and pushing, is going to break anyone down. And then the other thing about it that I find really interesting is burnout is the place of like almost insanity, because
woo, that's a strong statement, girl. Tell
and
us.
I believe that really strongly. Like if you think
Yeah.
about the periods of time when you get burned out, you do not have the capacity to be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever it is. You can't do it. And that ability of not being able to do it leaves us vulnerable. And that vulnerability is maddening. It's so frustrating that frustration then just like exasperates, it just compounds the burnout.
Oh, yeah.
So that I just had that conversation today with my boss because it's like I love being able to dissect these things. It's like, what
Totally.
is really going on? So a couple of statistics. The other question you asked are statistics. So
Yeah.
the first one I found is 44% of us, according to a Gallup survey in 2023, so it may not be right now, but 44% of us are burnt out right now, or at least that's what came out last year in 2023. That's really huge. When you think about it, that's a little less than half of us are in burnout. That's pretty like
Wow.
that requires attention, like
Yeah.
as collective, hello everybody. The other thing that I found out is 77%, according to a Deloitte study that came out
Uh-huh.
last year,
Uh-huh.
77% of people are within their current job. So that role itself have had some form, some chapter of burnout within that
Yeah.
job. 77%. So, and I've heard there's been a SHRM study like a few years ago. I don't remember
Yes.
exactly what it was. It said 98% of HR professionals have felt it at some time in their
Yep.
career.
Yeah.
98. so,
Yeah.
so now you take the 44% who are right now, 77% at some point in the jobs they have right now, and 98% at some time in our career. So burnout is so real,
Yeah.
and we're just not talking about it enough. So thank you for making this the topic, especially at the end of the year
Oh
when
my God.
I have not felt burnout. I have not felt this level of like, oh my gosh, make it stop in
Yeah.
years. It has
Yeah.
been at least 3 years since I've felt anything like what I feel right now. And it's not my fault. It's nobody's fault when we get to that place. It just means we've kind of like exhausted. We're exhausting ourselves. And so, in that respect, it's very, very normal. And it's something that I'm just really glad we're talking about today. So
Me too.
how about
Me too.
how about you? So tell me, what statistics, what information do you have that
Yeah. I've
that'll
got some
add?
good ones. But I've got to say, like, I'm watching you. Like, we're recording this live. We're like using video. So we're watching each other do this, right? And
Mhm.
right underneath you, it says Thrive and Shine HR. And all that's going through my head is we got to rename the podcast just for this episode. That's like, we're not like, we don't want anyone who's watching this episode to say, oh, damn, like I'm going to be
Yeah,
thriving and shining. No, 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 no.
I'm taking
Like,
that banner off.
yeah. So here's what I came up with. I was like, okay, oh my God, you really did. You are so fast. So Thrive and Shy HR. I think for anyone who is burned out, worried they're burned out, worried somebody else is burned out, just for today, we're talking about survive and revive HR, right? Like, let's just serve, because when you are burned out, you are not surviving. You're not able to function.
No, you
are,
can't,
yeah,
like it's just not physically possible. And that's the grace that we're going to talk about later that we don't give ourselves when we get into this place. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so tragic.
It is. And I had a one-on-one coaching session this afternoon, and this woman was telling me that they're letting their finance person go because she just cannot keep up. They're behind on audit, they're behind on budget, all the things. And I was like, is it almost like if you visualize your finance person dangling from a rope and it's windy and it's raining and they're just swinging all over the place? I was like, that to me is burnout. And then at the other end of it, like if you're like above, you've kind of climbed up the rope and you're already at the top of the climb and you're looking out over the valley, you're at the vista, that's like thriving and shining, right? I don't know. Weird analogies have been coming up today. To answer your question, so I read a very similar statistic. So this actually comes from the SHRM, get this, SHRM's 2024 Employee Mental Health and 2024 Research Series. But this statistic is just about U.S. employees. This is not about HR specifically, but same number that you heard from Gallup, 44% of U.S. employees feel burned out at work. That's 2020 right now. But check this out. I dug a little bit deeper because I have been using that 98% of HR professionals have been burned out. I've been using that statistic for a while. And that came out in 2022. So I was like, all right, what's happening in 2024? We're a little bit further away from the pandemic, yet we're sort of deep in a mental health crisis and a loneliness epidemic in the country. There's a lot going on. So Sage has reported that 81% of HR leaders feel burned out.
Wow. Right now,
95% feel overwhelmed and 84% are experiencing significant stress.
Wow.
So I was like, dang, okay, maybe we're not at 98%, but those stats to me are so high and it's about our profession. And then a company named WorkVivo, get this, here we are with 98% again. 98% of HR professionals felt burned out in a 6-month period.
Oh, man.
So it's real, it's happening. And the other thing I find really interesting is that the World Health Organization classifies, like if your doctor says you are burned out, you qualify for medical leave. I mean, burnout is a thing. The WHO has said this is not just some fancy terminology that people have come up with. This is a real health issue, according to the World Health Organization.
I am so glad you brought that up because I have had to have conversations, or I have had conversations because, gosh, so many leaders in particular, it's just admitting such a vulnerability to recognize how burnt out we are and what's needed in order to help fill our tank, and rather this idea of powering through and I'm tough, right? I'm tough. I'm just going to push my way through this. And it's just wild. Like here I am still in HR roles, and I feel like we've made so much progress in this area to know that is a qualified reason to be able to take, leave of absence, and a lot of stuff is paid leave and all of that. But yet the shame associated with admitting that need and then communicating that or having those tough conversations, we're just not there yet in so many places. And I just, I'm so grateful you said that. I'm so grateful you brought that up.
Amen. And I'm going to share something in a little bit that I've never shared on our podcast before. And I brought it up today. I got very vulnerable in person with some HR professionals regionally. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of my mental health, what was going on when I was truly burned out. But before we dive into my story, you've already answered part of question 2. I mean, question 2 being, have you experienced burnout, Jen? Check. She's answered it. It's happening now. And, Well, let me ask it a little bit. Have you experienced burnout before? Do you have you been able to prevent it? And how have
Mm-hmm.
you been able to recover from it? So have you had periods where you're not burned out, you've successfully been able to prevent it, or have you been burned out in the past and have you been able to recover? And how?
Yeah. Woo! So we already established that I'm burnt out right now. So we got that. But what I want to like touch on is the idea of, you know, when you're going to experience times that you're going to be hit with a lot at once, right? Like the whole idea of burnout, whether or not we have control over it, or sometimes it's just not something that we fully have control over and it's just going to happen. It's almost like a slow moving train, watching it. I think this time I knew that it was coming. I knew I was
Oh, interesting.
preparing. Yeah, I was preparing myself knowing that, there's a heavy, heavy load. But I think in the past, like I don't think I had the tools and the skills and the awareness and the mindset or anything to really have a clue what to do about it. And so I would just cope with whatever, ways that I thought was helping me get through. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to have burnout now versus burnout then, and recognizing now, oh, you know what, that wasn't something that was in my control, regardless of if I was an addict and an alcoholic and I, had all these other things that I was doing. Now I know what's happening and I can recognize, it a little differently because and I think I've shared on the podcast before, but when we moved from California to Oregon, and we moved for family, and I wanted to be here so, so badly to be close to family. But immediately the job that I ended up getting was such a terrible fit. It was such a terrible fit. And there was no jobs. This was, 2012 at the time, and there just wasn't anything in this area. I live in a very remote area, not as remote as you, but pretty remote. And so the level of burnout that I felt was so, so bad because I felt so powerless. I felt so like I couldn't figure out how to get out of this problem that I had, very miserable on my job. And my husband at the time, Mike, was so not happy in the job that he had. And I had really pushed him to move here. So there ended up being some conflict, some challenges in our relationship, which made it that much harder because instead of going through a time when you're struggling with burnout and you have the support at home, you have the connections, you have the self-care, when you don't have those things, right? And you are going to go through these times in life that are going to, be a lot. When you don't then have the support system and you don't have the self-care ways of being able to cope with it, it's just going to exasperate it. It's just going to make it that much more harder to heal from and recover from. So I think that's the perspective that I have now. Like I could go down a whole rabbit hole and tell the story of how I got burned out and, what I did. But I think bottom line is, you gotta invest in the work in yourself to be able to like then navigate through these times that will come and do so in a way that's thoughtful, that's conscious, that's aware of like, okay, here are my circumstances. How can I in this moment, best handle what's in front of me? And then also make sure that I'm not double negative, that I'm not taking care of myself. Right. And that's it. Completely hard, hard stop, period, all of that. So, okay. I said a lot and I'm losing my voice. So I want to turn it on you. Like, I want to hear, tell us about a time when you really got hit with burnout and how did that help in your framing and perspective and how you help others as well. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at that classic definition of burnout, that chronic unmanaged stress that occurs over a long period of time, I was slowly burning. It's almost like a matchstick with no wind. And when you ignite it, slowly burns down. That was me. I was slowly burning out. And this happened really in the last 5 years of my 9-to-5 career, where I took a position and a lot of things happened in that time frame. I lost an employee once a year for 5 years in a row. One died by suicide, one died by cancer,
Crazy.
so on and so forth. Alcoholism, COVID. It was really, really tough. And I worked for a mid-sized organization. So that was really difficult for me. I was also a team of one, but I was the first ever HR person for this organization. My boss was forced to hire me by his bosses. He did not want me there. I found this out a couple of months in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, compounded by the fact that, I had been in HR when I took this position for 20 years. I had been in and operating at a very high level in the HR profession. So I knew my shit, and I knew it backwards and forwards. And what kept happening was gender and pay inequity. For the sake of time, there was gender and pay inequity occurring in the workplace, including my pay. So when I blew out my ACL, I was on FMLA leave. I had to come back, do some things for payroll. And my boss pulled me aside and said, hey, I just hired somebody at the same rate of pay as you. He's in your pay grade and he has 5 years of experience and he's going to be awesome. And I was like, 5 years? I have 25 years of experience.
Let's do the math here.
Yeah. I'm a white female. My boss kept hiring white males. This happened over the 5-year period. And I was not a shit employee. I got the highest rating every single year because I'm an overachiever. I'm a perfectionist. I work nights. I work weekends, all the things that a lot of us tend to do in HR, right? So because I was working my ass off, because I did not have healthy boundaries, because I never said no to work, because I did exactly, Jen, what you were saying. I pushed through. One death after another, one open enrollment after another, one crazy time of employee investigations, sexual harassment claims, just crazy HR experiences because there had never been HR. I mean, I was cleaning up 50 years of bad leadership and bad management practices, and I was kicking ass. So when when this happened, there was a law that was instituted in the state of Colorado. It's called the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act. It came forth in 2021. So when I realized, like, oh my gosh, this is not just really bad. It's not only unethical and immoral for my boss to be constantly bringing people in and continually underpaying white female managers and directors. We just don't have a lot we don't have a lot of Asians. We don't have a lot of Black people. We don't have a lot of Indian people where I live. It's very homogenous. It's very Caucasian. It's just where I live. It just is. Okay. So when all of this happened, when he said this to me, I'm at work during my FMLA leave. I leave and I'm like, this is not okay. And I'd been working with a coach by this point. So I was developing my skills of assertion, developing my skills of advocacy, developing stress management, all those things. So I was actually very practiced in terms of maintaining my levels of stress at this point. However, it was on the very tail end of a long period of burnout. I'm talking about 5 years. I just started.
Oh man, what timing.
Right? So I finally was like, okay, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to stand up for the other female managers who are grossly underpaid to the men. And I consulted an organization down in Denver, and they said, this is the law. These are the facts. Take this to your boss. What he's doing is illegal. You have the metrics. You have the data. It's been verified by your finance director. It is absolutely happening. So I went in, still on FMLA. And I said, this is actually, it's not just bad now, it's illegal. And he'd been telling me, I'm going to fix it. And he never fixed it. Over 3 years of me saying, this doesn't work. And he's like, yeah, I know. So I was like, well, now it's illegal. Like, how are we going to rectify this? And he said, how about we pick your last day? Have I ever told you this?
I think maybe you have,
a long time
but
ago.
I just, whenever, I mean, I'm still just as shocked as I was the first time.
But here's the part I've never told on the podcast. So he said that, and I did not sleep for the next 3 nights.
I
I didn't
bet.
sleep. So talk about like compounded mental stress, emotional duress, physical duress,
Sure.
all the things that are classic in burnout. I went to my medical doctor and said, I don't like taking medicine at all. I don't like taking Advil. And I went to my doctor and I said, give me the strongest horse tranquilizer you can possibly give me to knock my ass out, because if I don't sleep, I'm going to fucking lose my mind. I was slowly losing my mind. That's how I felt.
Man.
And my GP said, I will give you a horse tranquilizer. Because, use the words I use. I'll give you a horse tranquilizer. I think it was called triazepam. I can't even remember.
Oh, wow.
Very strong sleeping pill. And she also said, you are not allowed to go back to work after your month you were taking off for your knee. I want you to take more time off for your mental health.
Good for you. Good for your
doctor. I don't think I've ever shared this with our listeners.
No, I don't think you have. I think that's awesome that they said that.
I took a mental health leave of absence after a long period of burnout when shit really hit the fan and I didn't sleep for 3 days. And I've also been experiencing a friend who is also out on a mental health leave of absence. Burnout is covered under the WHO. Burnout is covered under FMLA. And if you have family leave, whatever that is, depending upon the state, right? Federally speaking, nationally speaking, at least here in the US, you are covered. Your mental health matters. So if you think it's a little weird, if you are like, God, should I be taking FMLA if I'm burned out? The answer is yes. Now, we're probably going to see a mass exodus of HR people out on FMLA after this. I'm just kidding. All I'm saying is, do not think it is overkill to take FMLA for your brain. Because during that period, I was able to recover. I did. I came back to work. I was better. And let me tell you, my boss retaliated. He gaslit me. He did all the things that people do. And I was okay. I actually took that time to recover, to develop processes and systems and tools. I developed my ethos method, all the things that keep me okay when people are being complete ass munches in this lifetime.
That's amazing. You're my hero. You've always been my hero. And that just solidified it. I mean, it takes so much courage. I mean, thank you to the doctor, but the courage it takes, given the circumstances, to then say, nay, I'm going to take this time. I need to recalibrate, because that takes courage, that takes bravery, and the story that you just told just inspired people. There's no doubt in my mind. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
So, girl,
I know. I mean, it's time to get we promised our listeners that we're going to get real.
We did. You and I both have some bombshells to drop. So it's going to be a good
year. Get ready. They're going to keep coming. So, Jen, I mean, keeping with this theme of burnout, obviously, it's not even a theme. It's the name of our episode. I mean,
it's what I'm living right now.
So, I mean, how would our listeners know if our listeners are like, well, those statistics are high with burnout, especially amongst the HR. Am I burned out? What's the difference between stress and burnout? Like, how do our listeners know if they're actually suffering with burnout right now? Or how can they identify it in other people in their organization, in their life? How can we help people identify what burnout actually looks like, feels like, et cetera?
Well, thank you, Katherine. I thought you'd never ask. I love that question so much. I'm so glad you asked the question. I went to the chat GPT and I said, look, yes, I'm feeling a whole lot of things right now, but tell me, chat GPT, what do you see? So earlier I was talking about there's 3 real ways burnout manifests itself. It manifests itself physically, it manifests mentally, and it manifests emotionally. So, so let's talk about the physical signs first. Physically, you're going to have fatigue even after rest and weekends, right? The fatigue is long term. You know deep down that you need at least a week, 2 weeks. There's something like that's just nagging you that's like, I am exhausted, right? Number two, frequent headaches, muscle tension, or stomach issues. I had stomach issues so bad, like, let me not even tell you the toilet story this week. Okay, changes in sleep patterns. I'm not sleeping. You weren't sleeping, right? Difficulty sleeping or sleeping excessively. I was in bed at 8 o'clock last night, 8 p.m. last night. And I'm
Yep.
so thankful I was, because I got up at 5 a.m. I was ready to work out. I was ready to do meditation. I was ready to stretch.
Yes.
So yeah, our rest is so needed. Okay, those are the physical. So how about mental? Reduced performance and productivity. We slow down. We can't focus. We can't concentrate. We're just not as present. Avoiding responsibilities and procrastinating more than usual. I love some people
More than usual.
that are such procrastinators when they're burnt out, when they're overwhelmed. And yet it's so hard to admit it. Like, so there's like this fight that we have within ourselves when we start getting mentally burnt out. And then 3, social withdrawal, shutting down, like when we should be wanting to be around our friends and family, and we just can't. We're energetically like fucking exhausted, right? Like, I'm sorry for the words, but
I'm not.
we're disengaged. We're more disengaged from colleagues, friends, and family. So it's just hard. It's hard when you're burnt out. And like me being here tonight, I'm so thankful, because like, there's a part of me that just wants to curl up under the bed, but there was nothing that was going to keep me away from this.
No way. I
this
feel the same way.
So important. So emotionally, number 3.
Okay.
So we got the physical, we got the mental, and now emotional.
Okay.
Feeling cynical, detached, or disillusioned about your work or personal life, y'all. Like, think about, like, sometimes when we're burned out, that's when we're more resentful. That's when we're more just overall, like, we're just bitchy. Everything just is really frustrating and like nothing. Yeah. So the emotions are kind of going crazy. Increased irritability or a short temper. Anybody get a short temper out there? Right?
Cry. Yes, short temper.
Such a short temper. So I apologize to everybody I know or who have ever known that have seen me with a short temper when I'm burnt out, because it's just not good, especially when I'm drinking or whatever. And then finally, a sense of hopelessness, a lack of motivation, even for tasks you normally enjoy. So how heartbreaking, how, like, bless our hearts when we're burnt out. So I read that. I said, thank you so much, ChatGPT. I had such a great conversation with my boss today, who said, what's great about AI is like, it's such a co-creative masterpiece. When you put in what you're really looking for, like me asking the question about, tell me more about burnout, it's giving back to me way better than anything that I'd be able to do on my own. And then I get to come and share it with you and everybody else. And so what a gift I have now from taking the AI, which is not, it's of no use it's of no use until you can find a way to share it with other people. And so anyway, so I'm talking all good about AI, but I think the physical, the mental, and the emotional burnout, it's just so heartbreaking for all of us to know that 44% of us right now, or 70, whatever the statistics are, you are out there. I see you, I feel you, and I am you. And we got this.
So as you go through that list, like as you were reading the ChatGPT spit out, were you like, yes, every single one? So every single one you listed, it wasn't like 9 out of 10. You were like 100% all of them.
No, I mean, you know what? Like, not 100% every 100% of the time, right? I think it manifests itself in different ways depending on the circumstances. And So in terms, like, there are times when I'm burnt out that I'm up until 2 a.m. and then I'm up again at 4:30 a.m. Like, that's also burnout. And so it's going to show up sometimes where I'm overworking. And then like last night, it showed up because I was in bed at 8 o'clock. Like, I wanted to get back. I don't know who out there watches Netflix and likes Netflix, but I am a holiday movie junkie like you would not believe. And so I was watching the Lindsay Lohan movie with the guy Logan, and she's whatever. And I
It's next on
love
my list.
I love Kristen Chenoweth. She's one of my
Love
favorites.
her.
She did, Glinda in Wicked, and I've heard so many like great things about it. And so anyway, so I don't know why I was talking about this.
Lindsay Lohan, Netflix. I don't know who watches Netflix.
But why am I talking about this in Burnout?
Netflix, because do you retreat into Netflix when you're burned out? Do you watch it in the middle of the night when you wake up? What do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
escapism?
So what I was going to say is that instead of finishing that movie, and I only have 5 minutes left because I've been watching it over the last like 10 nights.
Yeah.
You think that I can get through something in one day, but when I'm burned out, everything is like turned upside down right now. Like, I'm having calls with attorneys because they're East Coast and I'm on the phone at 5:30 in the morning, or, it's just all upside down right now. And like, Jay Shetty, like, you listen to, what is it, Tamara Levitt, or
She does the daily meditation.
So Mike and I listen to Jay Shetty's every morning. But he has an 8-minute one, and I think hers is like 10 to 12 minutes. And then there's the other guy too, who's so good.
I mean, I'm addicted to the sleep stories, so I listen.
Nice.
I love them.
Have we talked about the Matthew McConaughey one? If you haven't,
it's the very first one I listened to, and I probably listened to that one once a week.
Oh,
it's probably been a while, but that was the very first one I listened to, and it was like sleeping with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we're getting off track here. I want to know what you see as, what would our listeners know for them to know they're suffering from burnout? What do they need to know?
I mean, everything you just mentioned. Because I too did a ton of research. I'm like, how will our listeners know? So Jen, literally I'm listening to you and I'm like, yep, I saw that in my research. Yes.
Yay.
I want to mention three additional things. One, the physical is real.
Yeah.
When I took that last job in my 9 to 5, before I started my coaching and consulting business, I had gone from being a global HR leader, high stress, to being a department of one for a much smaller organization, very laid back community. And the burnout was coming from my own brain, the thoughts I was choosing about the job. And I was a competitive gymnast. So growing up, I landed on my head a lot. I mean, I was pretty high up in the competitive circuit, right? So I'd be working on my fulls and whatnot, and I landed on my head a lot, falling off the beam, my vault, bars, floor, all of it. So I used to get a crick in my neck, and I would only be able to turn my neck this far instead of like this, instead of this far. It would only go like 2 degrees instead of 45.
Okay.
And I woke up one morning with a crick in my neck from sleeping. This was within my first 2 weeks. And I was like, well, that's weird. I've never had a crick in my neck without injuring it. It had been 25 years since I had a crick in my neck.
Yeah.
I kept getting cricks in my neck. So
what?
my body, I did not understand. I didn't correlate it to burnout. And it was really when I went from being stressed to seriously burned out. So my body was telling me. And then here are the 2 other symptoms or indications that you're burned out. One, you're turning to other comforts. Alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh, girl, we got that one in common. Over exercising.
Yeah. Yep. I have that one too.
Yep. Drugs.
Yep.
comfort food. So when I was burned out, I was eating sugar all the time. I was over exercising. I still do that. I mean, I signed up for I want to run a 50. I'm an ultra runner. So I want to run a 50 miler for my 50th year next year.
Wow.
So this ties into Netflix, Jen.
Yeah.
Because I have to start training, but I have this, you get to watch holiday movies on Netflix when you're running on the train.
I love that. That's so great.
So it helps me with my training. So,
okay. So what are your top 3 holiday movies?
I mean, I've been on Netflix. So there's the Scottish one. There's the Bethlehem one.
Is that the Scottish one from the girl and the guy from Party of 5?
Yes.
Yes, I saw that one.
Did you do the Bethlehem one?
Okay.
With the baby?
I haven't seen that one.
Okay, that one's good. I recommend that one. Oh, God. I mean, I've watched so many.
Somebody was telling me today to see the Love Hard, which is like the one girl likes Love Actually and the guy likes Die Hard, and they both are like debating it. Them as
that's the second one then, because the Lindsay Lohan one's been on, so that's got to be number one. Love Hard, I've seen. There was one where a woman, oh God, I think I'm confusing my movies. Anyway, there's my top 2.
Anyway, we've got things to cover.
The other one, the second thing that really surprised me, vision changes, dry eyes, eye strain, eye twitching, and blurred vision. I got glasses.
Oh, wow.
I was in these last 5 years, and I was getting this little eye twitch, and it actually would happen, and I'm actually under them right now, fluorescent lighting. Older offices that still use fluorescent lighting, my eye would twitch. And I also, it's interesting. I don't think of myself as having PTSD, but when I'm in a conference room, surrounded by people, it's a contentious conversation. There's fluorescent lights and my eye starts to twitch.
Oh my gosh. I've had that too.
You have indication of burnout.
Yeah.
According to the research I read.
Wow. Interesting. No, I absolutely have had that too.
I thought it was just dehydration.
Moments, though.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't burnout necessarily, but I was in the room with the CEO one time, my first and only time, and my eye was just going crazy.
But were you under a lot of stress?
Oh yeah. I was presenting to the CEO, and it was like, didn't sleep a wink the night before. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I just felt like everyone could see, and probably they could, I don't know, whatever. But it was a moment. It was a wild moment. That's a level of stress. It doesn't have to be a burnout because, what's that?
I just said, yeah. I've turned to people when my eye's been doing it and I'm like, can you see this? They're like, I can see it. So at least on me, people can see it happening.
Yeah. Woo.
Well, what about advice for preventing burnout, Jen? Have there been periods where you're like, I actually do think I prevented burnout? Have you experienced that?
Yeah. No, I'm experiencing that today on Friday the 13th. I'm experiencing it.
What about preventing it? Because you're experiencing burnout, but how are you preventing it, or how have you prevented it?
Yeah, no, I think I'm doing both simultaneously, right? So like the circumstances are extreme. You and I both understand coaching, and we know that, when it comes to the circumstances in your life, whatever's going on around you, how you perceive those circumstances are going to be whether or not you think, good, and you're able to kind of find the gratitude, or find, something to really, see that can help you through, or you can see yourself as a victim, or you could see it all as bad, or you could see good and bad and right and wrong and enemies. And, it's just, it's a way of looking at life. And so I'm now so aware of that, there's something that comes up in my mind anytime I'm put in intense situations that I'm just really trying to just trying to be very present in the situation. So have you heard of and I might have talked about this on the podcast before, but the video of the little boy talking to his caretaker, whose name is Linda, and he's saying,
No.
Linda, listen, Linda. Have you ever heard of it before?
No, and my
Oh my
mother-in-law's name
God.
is Linda, so I need to check this out.
Yeah, so I will definitely put this in the show notes, but
Okay.
it's the cutest video ever. There's a little boy and he's probably, I don't know, 8 years old. And there's a lady who's filming it, and she is his caretaker. And basically he's trying to negotiate with his caretaker to listen to his side of the story. He's a negotiator. He's like, Linda, listen to me. She's trying to punish him. He put his hand in the cookie jar or whatever, and she's punishing him, but he's like, listen, Linda. So what I have in my head all the time is basically listen.
Wow.
And it's like, it's on repeat in my mind. And it's one of those videos that I've seen a few times, and it's so cute and it's so funny. But why it's on in my brain so often is because the more that we pay attention, the more that we're listening and really listening to ourselves mostly. Like, it's great that we listen and we're paying attention to this person and that person, da, 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 da. But if we're not really paying attention to what's going on inside, like what we really feel about things, what we're thinking about things, how we're perceiving things, what beliefs we might have that are keeping us from really being able to hear someone else's point of view on things, then that's going to only just, it's going to just continue our burnout. It's going to continue our exhaustion. But if we're paying attention to ourselves in terms of what do I need right now, or what does this situation need right now, or how can I really make sure I'm thoughtful in this moment to address what needs to be addressed. So yes, I'm feeling burnout, but I see it so dramatically different than burnout that I've ever felt before. 150%. Because I'm just very, like I said, I was up at 5. I was in bed at 8, but I was up at 5, and I'm really, just very, I'm trying to be very listening. I'm Linda, listen. Yeah. I'm listening to what's really going on and where I can make sure that I can be my best self in this chaos right here and right now. And that's why I love this podcast so much, because I can always be like, right before I get on, I'm like, listen to how you can best be in this moment. And so that's what's changed for me around burnout. It's going to happen again. It's happening right now. It's going to happen again. At some point, my parents are going to need care beyond a level I can even consider. At some point. And at some point, things are going to really get thrown upside down in my life at some point. And those all lead to burnout. So professionally, typically we look at burnout as being something that's just professional, but it's at any area of our life that gets out of hand to the point that we've maximized capacity. So I'm on such a rant. I'm so sorry. I know that we're not as far. It's gonna go long. So I hope you're not in a hurry. But I'm on a soapbox today. So what about you?
I think our listeners, I appreciate it. I appreciate knowing that, you're in it this week. You're in it. You got some legal shit going on at work.
Oh, not crazy.
And what I'm hearing is you're taking care of yourself. You're tired and you're going to bed.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself in bed. You're getting up at 5. You're getting ample sleep. I know you're not drinking. You're not going to really unhealthy habits, that have a negative consequence on the end. You're taking care of yourself. That's what I'm hearing. And I think it's really cool. So in some ways, I agree. I think you're preventing burnout.
I'm preventing burnout. And that's what it is. You and I know that, it is the action. It's our action that we take.
Yeah.
And so we have any moment, we have the opportunity to just get really clear,
Yeah.
I see it as like, right, like sometimes we have to do a real inventory, and then we need to put our attention and then intention and then action. So that's for me how you beat burnout is be intentional and then take action. So, oh my gosh, I feel preachy today. I apologize, everybody. I have had so many just mind-bending conversations over the last few days that I just feel like it's been really cool. And then to have this conversation happen tonight, I'm like, thank you, universe. It's low-hanging fruit. Like if there could ever be low-hanging fruit, it was tonight.
I've been really geeking out this week on the negative impacts of social media. So what you just shared is very much related to all the research I've been doing on why social media is so bad for us.
Yeah.
And what you just shared, like what this podcast is allowing for you right now is like, you're getting it out. You're sharing. You and I are connecting. You're connecting with our listeners. You're making a difference in our listeners' lives, through being very vulnerable and very honest with what you're going through. So as opposed to like being on a soapbox, I see it a little bit differently. It's almost like we're doing a podcast journaling. You and I are both like,
hell yes. Hell yes, absolutely. I love that so much. It is a journal. It's a journal that we're vomiting with our mouths and
yeah. And instead of keeping it to ourselves, which is very useful for anyone with a journaling practice, super useful. But what I'm geeking out on this week is the social aspect. We're social beings.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to sort of do this podcast journaling with each other and with our listeners, there's something really cool about that because we do rely on social connection. It's that antidote to the loneliness epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have noticed, I've gone through some heavy shit in this last year. Jen, our listeners who've been on previous podcasts, if you want to know what shit I've been through in the last year, go back and listen to episodes 1 through 40. I come out all the time with everything that's going on. So,
oh my God.
Social media, if you think about it, it's supposed to connect us. That was the intention of social media. But what social media has done, we scroll. We don't talk to other people. So what I recommend, this is very specific advice for our listeners who want to prevent burnout. When you notice you're escaping through your phone, when you're scrolling, right? It's just a habit. And you're not connecting with people, use your phone to connect with people. Reach out to somebody, text somebody.
I love it.
Right?
Make a phone call.
Make a phone call. And maybe you're making that phone. Oh, I may get emotional. Because you need to ask for help.
Yeah.
Maybe
we need each other.
Right. We need each other. Ask for help. I promise you there's someone in your phone, whether it's a text, whether it's Jen or I, because we've connected on social media. Maybe we're connected on LinkedIn. Maybe we're connected on Facebook. Maybe it's Instagram. Reach out to Jen or me. I'm just going to speak on it because I know you feel the same way.
Absolutely.
We would be happy to dialogue with you and help you.
Yeah.
Use your phone to socially connect instead of escaping and scrolling and ruminating. Like if you wake up in the middle of the night, that scrolling's not going to help. If you're on your lunch break and you're really pissed off, you're having a shitty day, that scrolling's not going to help, right? Doom scrolling or whatever they call it, it doesn't help.
Yeah, it's doom scrolling.
Ask for help or help someone else. Reach out to someone, look at your phone, go to your contact list and just scroll, do a reverse scroll instead of this scrolling down. What if you scrolled up in your contact list and it just stops on N's and you have 20 people with the first name of N and you're like, oh my God, I haven't connected with Nelson. Shoot Nelson a text and say, your name just popped up. I'm wondering how you're doing.
That's a badass idea. I love that.
So socialize instead of escaping through social media. Just thought.
I Love that thought. And I think that should be a challenge for everyone on here. So I'd love
Yes.
to challenge all of us this next week. Grab your phones, go to the contacts, swipe up 2
Right
times.
up.
Whatever name comes up, that's the person. Challenge yourself to reach out to that person and say, hey, did a little challenge. Your name came up and I just wanted to say hi.
Yeah. And what's
I think that's
interesting,
so
I mean,
awesome.
maybe that person, like, you're like, oh my God, look, there's Dr. Christina King, a real person who's a psychologist, who's a very dear friend of mine. And what if her name popped up because she's the right person who can help me?
Yeah.
She has helped me so many times in my life when I've been in a total self-induced shitstorm. She's helped me so many times. So maybe her name comes up. And instead of saying, how you doing? It's like, hey, I need your help.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Ooh, I've got chills.
So fun.
I'm so excited.
We keep coming up with challenges. I mean, this may be a new thing in the podcast. Like, we're going to start challenging our listeners.
There's so many new things coming with this podcast. It's like, do we have enough time at the end to give some sneak peeks? What do you think?
I think we do.
I think we do. Okay, we have a couple more questions though, don't we?
Okay. We can blaze through them. We can take our time, whatever. What advice do you have for our listeners, Jen, around recovering from burnout? So that post-burnout period, what advice do you have for recovery?
I think you answered it in the last question, and it's really around not being alone, not, to challenge yourself to get outside your own head when it comes to reaching out for help. We are all suffering. We are all struggling in some way.
Yeah.
And especially when it's burnout. When it's burnout, what it said from ChatGPT is it's because we care. Every human being is, a caring individual. What they care about is different, but we all care about things deeply. Burnout means we have gone overboard. We are in crisis, right? So I think to be able to reach out and just have that courage that you did when your doctor said, hey, here's what you need to do. And then you did it, right?
I did it.
Like, you didn't have to do it. You fucking did it. So that is the courage that I think we all need, and to not do it alone, to feel like I know that when I'm doing this, I'm not going to go down a shame spiral or self-induced shitstorm. I'm going to really feel like I'm going to make this happen. And so I think that's it. That's reaching out. It's connecting with others. It's finding your community. It's finding your tribe. It's finding one person, even if it's Kathy or I. It's just finding that place to start. And then from there, it's like a snowball, it just builds, because then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I could question this. I didn't realize that I had, that this was even an option for me. And so, that's what it takes. Courage. It takes a lot of courage. So, what a conversation. I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight.
Me too. Totally.
Oh my goodness.
We talk so much about the because you and I are trained coaches, and we know it's these small steps that have big impact. And what the research says when you're recovering from burnout is, like, the bigger your burnout is, the smaller the step has to be.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
I know. I love that too. And yet, when I reflect on my burnout period, like, I took a leave of absence for my brain.
Yeah.
And it was probably a series of small steps. However, I couldn't just go to my quick fixes when I'm stressed. Like, my quick fixes are go for a massage. Massages are incredibly therapeutic for me. Go for a run, take a mental health day. Like, those are my quick fixes, but I needed an actual fix. And so I went deep into understanding my brain. I mean, I spent the entire, like, I was also recovering from knee surgery, which is, an ACL is 9 months long. So I spent Yeah. And I spent 9 months because I couldn't go to my normal escaping through running. That was my
Yeah.
normal way to keep my head healthy. I realized that running was also, in a way, like I would work things out in my brain, but it was also a little bit of a physical escapism. And if I wasn't doing thought work while I was running, if I wasn't really working on my thoughts and reframing things that were bothering me and doing the noticing, like that is, I do habit coupling now. When I run, I do thought work,
Love
except when
it.
I'm
Love
watching
it.
Netflix. When I'm outside, because I run, I mean, I'm outside all the time, right? So I did not understand that habits I thought were healthy for me, like running, and they are. I'm not saying running's not healthy, but when I couple it with the mental component, when I work on my thoughts, when I do thought downloads, when I do the thought work, when I'm running with a girlfriend, and I'm not bitching and moaning, rather, we are solving for the problem. It's a very different experience. I do not let my girlfriends let me bitch and moan. I'm like, okay, I got to get this out. But when I'm done telling you what happened, like with all my mind drama, let's get down to the facts. Let's figure out where I want to go and help me put an action plan in place to get where I want to go because I don't want to stay stuck here anymore. So, my advice, it's a little bit contrary to what I normally offer because for me, the quick fix didn't work for burnout. They say it does, and it didn't for me. I had
Yeah.
to go big. And I
Yeah.
had to spend a lot of time learning the small steps of thought work and of managing my mind in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think I would have ended up burned out again. And I haven't been burned out since because I'm so diligent with my thought work and managing my mind and spending a lot of time on it. But by a lot of time, I mean 5 minutes every morning. But I'm very consistent with it, right?
Yeah. No, love that.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. And yeah, you know what? That is such a huge thing. And I think, like I know you and I both have heard every excuse in the book why people aren't, doing the work or the thought work or, really going there, right? It's freaking hard, especially when things really, hit us in ways that, so we get it. We
Yeah.
get it. And so
You
that's
do get it.
when, we can kind of have that compassion because this journey for every one of us. And I think that's where I'm like, this idea of go big or, the massage and whatever.
Yeah.
It's like in everything in between, it's like it has to be what is most right for you. It has to be, and so that's where having a therapist. And again, I'll go back to that being the highlight of my week because therapy is like, my therapist and I had such a good conversation yesterday where, the reciprocity,
You got it.
reciprocity, right? The idea is it's not just me, spewing, everything that's wrong in my life. It's about an opportunity to really reflect back and like have this ability to have someone see you and, help you navigate like through like the craziness that comes up when, circumstances in our life get hard. And so, I think it's so, incredible to hear, the work that, you've been doing and the work that, we've been encouraging because it's really, I think that's where the power lies. And then it's the action, right? So it's like the learning, the understanding, the unpeeling of the onion. And then, okay, now what? What am I going to, how am I going to use this information?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it's such a beautiful thing. It's like, it's almost like burnout I see as rock bottom, for anything that you have that's
100%.
really rough in life. Your burnout is the wake up call. It's the snow globe shake. It's like, hello, you better be paying attention. Something is not right here. So that is also a beautiful thing. It's like the lotus flower opportunity. And to really say, hey, I'm going to be paying attention now. So that's the other thing that I would say is just really paying attention. There's an opportunity here for a lotus flower.
Do you know that's why I named my company Marble Peak Consulting?
No, I don't think I knew that.
It's very similar to the lotus flower, like marble. I live in Marble, Colorado, but there's a marble quarry. And the marble that comes out of our quarry actually was used to build the Lincoln Memorial. So the marble is just beautiful. It's shipped all over the world from my little community.
Cool.
Yeah. But the thing about marble, the reason I chose Marble Peak, there is Marble Peak, and my home looks over Marble Peak. It's beautiful. I had this whole spiritual experience, but marble is comprised when the heat and the pressure of the elements recrystallize and metamorphosize the elements into this beautiful white, sometimes interweaving with some different colors, but this beautiful, beautiful rock and elements that's used in sculpture.
Wow.
So for me,
wow, I don't think I've heard this before. That's really amazing.
A lot of people where I live are like, oh, she lives in Marble. It's just Marble Peak. I'm like, there's a deeper meaning behind
I gotta get there. Okay, I'm booking my flight tomorrow.
Yes. We're gonna have a retreat here, and my home's beautiful.
I will. Okay, this is no joke. We're talking offline.
We're talking offline. Oh, amen. That'd be the best Christmas present. What's your top tip? What's your top tip for our listeners who are struggling right the F now with burnout? What is your top tip for them?
Linda, listen.
Yes, listen.
Linda, listen. So, yeah, I'm going to share that video. And if you haven't seen it, please see it. And think about it from the context of you have a little child inside yourself. We all have something that's inside of ourselves that knows that there's something calling to us when we are pushing ourselves too far. So listening is really about being honest with yourself and what is that calling? What are you missing? And listen, and then be ready to do something. Be ready to take action. Be ready to get support. Be ready to get that moving, and know that you're not alone, and know that you have a lot of people behind you that want to see, you listen and act. So today was more, I felt it more strongly. It's like it's channeling through me today.
I love it. You're so on point today. And I'm just so grateful that you're willing to share with our listeners, I'm burned out right now.
Yeah, I'm so freaking tired. I need to go see my parents in Phoenix. I haven't seen them in months and months and months. And I'm so tired. I was supposed to go see him for the holidays for Christmas, and I can't leave with this system going live. So making sacrifices, and then, saying, okay, the end is in sight and I am going to make that happen. I'm going to prioritize what do I need, knowing that this too shall pass. And so it's fascinating. It's fascinating to now have the skills that I do, but to know, hey, this is not in your control when you hit this certain capacity. and that's absolutely okay. That's part of the journey. That's part of why we're going to continue to learn and continue to grow throughout the rest of my days. And I hope I live to 100. I really hope I do. How about you? Okay, so share your top tip.
My top tip is very related to listen and act. Very related to that. I call it choose your heart. Meaning,
I love it.
If you are burned out, that is hard to keep choosing to stay stuck in burnout.
Yes.
If you're choosing the thought of, I don't know, I can't figure this out, right? That's hard. You're going to stay stuck. If you choose the thought of, I don't know how to get out of this, and I'm going to ask for help, right? So you can either stay stuck in burnout, or you can do something that is also hard. It is hard for HR people to ask for help. I mean, across the board. And I do think, going back to the very beginning of our conversation, if 44% of Americans are burned out, but in the 80s is what HR people, our burnout rate is double the US average of burnout, double. And I think it's because certain people are attracted to and stay in the HR profession. We are the people who give selflessly over and over and over again. And we would rather stay in burnout while like we're burned out and we're going to stay late to help other people get out of burnout. And we've got to stop doing that. We've got to stop doing that. Ask for help. Jen and I are always here for you as our listener. We can be resourceful. We can point you in the right direction. Use your EAP. Use your mental health services through the health insurance you get from your employer. If you do, know Jen and I are always here for you. Ask for help. Is it going to feel hard? Yes. Yeah. It is. When I stopped drinking and I called my sister, that phone call to call my sister and say, I don't want to drink alcohol anymore. Help me. I thought about making that phone call so many times. When I finally did it, I was shaking, I was nervous, and I haven't touched alcohol in 1.5 years since.
Nice.
Like, it was so hard, but let me tell you what has happened since then. My life is so much better.
Completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it sure as hell beats the burnout. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's what we do with it. And it's the questions we're willing to ask, and then what we're willing to do about the answers we get.
Action. Listen, action. Linda, listen, action. LLA.
Oh, Katherine.
So fun. I mean, this, as usual, total therapy. Just talking about burnout with you so openly. Thank you so much for everything you shared. Like,
thank you.
You're just a wealth of wisdom. This is just so helpful for me personally to hear you talk about this, to share your wisdom. Yeah. And just knowing your commitment to the HR profession and women in the HR profession. I feel like I have found my partner who is just hell bent on helping women in the HR profession. So thank you. I couldn't do this.
Stop.
No, this podcast is Jen's baby. I'm just along for the ride. I'm like the little baby behind her in the baby carrier. I don't know. That makes no sense.
For those who are listening and not watching, I was saying stop. And I was basically saying, keep going. So thank you so much. I mean, I think we are at such a wonderful pivot point as we start into 2025. And I know you and I have been talking offline quite a lot about how excited we are with the new structure that goes into effect next month. So for those who may not have heard, we are going to start having interviews. So I'm super excited for my January. I haven't written it up yet, but I've already talked to them and they're excited about coming. And then, it's just going to have a new structure. So I'm going to get out something. I'm in the process of creating something that we'll get out that's going to show, the year in advance.
Yes.
So we're going to have some fun. What are you excited about as we get into this next year?
My first podcast host. I'm not going to let too much. I'm not going to open the curtain totally. My first podcast guest for January said yes. And she's so excited. And so I'm super pumped for our new format for 2025. Can't wait to disclose more to our listeners. And it's going to be, this podcast is going to keep getting better and better. And it's all for women in the HR profession. It's time to thrive and shine.
So get prepared, because one of the things, once Kathy and I finalize the details for the first few months, we're going to have an event calendar that's going to be out there that's going to have all of the dates at the very least for the first quarter, if not the first whole year. Because I think one of the things that you guys have asked for that we want to make sure that you get is that consistency around when you can see us. And so excited to be able to bring that to everybody. And so it's going to be a really great year for Thrive and Shine HR.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So if today was helpful for you as our listener, please download, rate, review the podcast, do all the things. Please share it. If there's someone in your life, and I'm going to say it, even if they're not in HR, even if they're not, if you have a family member, a coworker, a boss, a colleague, a neighbor who is burned out, share this episode. We want to help people thrive
Do
and
that.
shine. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us for episode 41. We will see you next week for episode 42. Jen, great job on crushing it this week. I cannot wait to see you next week.
Oh, thank you so much, Katherine. What a great week. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and joining us live or listening to us afterwards. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye now.